Hi everybody, it's Cindy again with Ideas Times 2. Back today with part 3 of the small file folder folio ephemera holder tutorial. And today there are two things that we need to do that will finish it up, and that would be adding something to the back cover. Adding something there gives it a little bit more stability and one more place to store ephemera, and then some kind of a closure. So we're going to talk about closures. So this was my example. This one is done, and I will put that out of the way so we can finish up the one we've been working on together. So since yesterday, since I published the second part, you can see I've done a little bit of embellishing. I added something here to the front cover. I did the same thing on the envelope. I added a, just a little layered something there, and put a little black on there just to give it some relief. I didn't embellish the journal at all, but just a little bit on the outside to add a little bit of visual interest. So then yesterday we also finished this up, the file folder section and faux file folder, and I'll put that aside so that we can, and I'll take this out of there, make it a little easier to deal with while we're working. And I want to put something here. So you have a lot of options. You could do another large tuck spot, like something like this, or another of the side tucks, the side pocket. You could put that, a full one here. If you wanted to, you could just add, a couple of pockets, a couple pockets on top of each other, or you could leave it blank. It doesn't matter. That's up to you. But what I want to do is make a gusseted pocket with a flap closure. So that's what we're going to do. So if you want to make the gusseted pocket with the flap tuck and the button string closure, you need a piece of paper that's, well, you can make it different sizes depending on your needs. But the one that I had made was just a little smaller than the file folder. So it was 8.5 inches, a piece of paper 8.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And it needs to be scored. So you'll want to make sure that you pay attention to that in your measurements. So I have some scraps. I've been all about using scraps for this project. And so these are the scraps that I have left that are about the right size. It's a little small. And this is only both of these are 3.5 inches, but they would be perfect to save for the cover, but a little small for the pocket because of the bottom flap on the gusset. This is almost 4 inches. I really am kind of liking using the recipe cards, but it'll make my pocket a little smaller, but I think I'm willing to do that. I also have this paper, which I really like against that red, but I'm really leaning towards this, and maybe this as my flap, which now that I've seen it all together, all of the different parts together, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I am going to move that to the side, cut this down. I'm going to cut off this strip that has the name of the paper pad, which was ingredient. I mentioned that the other day on part 1, and then it's Authentique brand. So I'm keeping this because it has that saying on there, so I'll just put that there. And I think I'll have to cut it right on that line. So it's not quite 8.5, but it's over 8. But that I think is the best place to cut. So even though I gave you measurements 4.5 by 8.5, if you have paper that is, you're trying to, use up scraps and it's a little smaller than that, hey, no problem. So let's grab the scoreboard. I'm going to grab the big scoreboard. So I'm going to make, I don't like that that's going to be cut off, but not much I can do about that. But I'm going to score at 1/4 inch. I don't want it too fat. A little more than 1/4 inch. I don't want the gusset too deep because I don't want the pocket to have so much room that I overfill it, right? If it's over full, the folder is going to be really stuffed full and be too big. So I'm scoring at about the 1/4 inch. And so, like I mentioned the other day, I know this is really hard to see. You probably can't, maybe, in the corner where the two lines meet, it kind of forms an X. I always trim there, and kind of X marks the spot on both sides. And then do the same thing at the top. Just from the score line, make just a small angle cut so that you wind up with something that looks like that. And fold it up on all 3 sides. And you want to make sure that they are that they're neat cuts. You can see I didn't cut quite far enough, so when I fold it over, it's a little messy right there, so I'm going to trim just a little more. X might mark the spot, but I didn't cut quite right on the X, so that's better on both sides. So that is my pocket. And before I glue it down, I want to make sure that I have the right size. So this is 7, about 7 for me. For mine, it's going to be about 7.25 inches that I need to cut widthwise. But I'm actually going to cut it this way first. And the flap, I'm going to make the flap about 2 inches. So I'm going to actually cut it at 2.5. So I have room for the fold. And 7.25, I think is what I said, right? There's my pencil. think 7¼ is what I'm going to want. I want my fold to be just a little smaller than the envelope, so that everything fits together neatly. So what I'm going to do then is on before I do that, the flap portion, I'm going to round the corners. If you don't want rounded corners, don't round them. If you have another shape that you would prefer, do what you want. And I'm going to so this is 2½ inches. I'm going to score at 1/2 inch and then fold it over, and that will give us something that looks kind of like that. So I think I'm done with the scoreboards. And before I glue anything down, what I'm going to do is make the closure. And what I'm going to do is, using this scrap piece of paper, I'm going to cut out 2 circles. I'm going to make my own button. And the paper is a little flimsy for just one layer. And I think I'm going to use the top side of this. I'm going to glue these 2 pieces of paper together. So there's a little more stability on the button. And I'm putting both the turquoise sides together just for no other reason, because you're not going to see one side, but just in case, just in case somebody sees the bottom of it. If I were doing a vintage style, I would ink the edges before I attached it, but I'm not inking the edges on this one, since everything is white and I want to keep it that way. So it looks like this right here is the center. So I'm going to attach it right there. And so what I'm going to do is, using my Crop-A-Dile, I'm just going to eyeball. Really don't need to eyeball the center. I actually have a fairly decent center already on there. And need that again. I'm going to punch a hole on there as well. And it's, often I've attached, this time I'm going to use a brad. I've used eyelets and things before, but I want to add just a little texture, something that's not paper. So I'm going to attach this with a decorative brad. Maybe if I can get them to, there we go. And on the inside, I really don't want to leave that metal sticking out. I don't want anybody to get it caught on their clothes or cut themselves. So make sure they're nice and flat. And then I'm going to use paper scrap. And now you could use washi tape. If it doesn't matter, if it doesn't matter, unfortunately, it's not going to. I could fussy cut and find a bigger piece and fussy cut it down. But to me, that's just a waste of paper for the inside of something. Or you could put it, the other, and maybe I'll do that. Put the other side down so that it's doesn't look quite so off there. And I'll just put a piece of paper. I'm going to glue it down. To cover that up. It's on the inside, so nobody's going to see it. If you don't mind having those prongs visible, then don't worry about this part. But I think it gives it just a little more finished look. And I'm going to be putting this in our Etsy shop, so I want to make sure that it is, it is completely finished. And so there's the closure. And I'm just going to then decide. I'm going to decide on, sorry about that. I didn't mean to move my whole table. A color of thread that I want to use. You can use whatever you have handy. I'm going to go with black. I've got some black. I often use baker's twine, but I don't have any of the right color, and you don't need very much. And this will probably be too long, but I cut a piece that's about 13 inches. So what I'm going to do is make sure that it's about lined up, and I'm going to just eyeball it. I could measure, but I'm going to just eyeball. I'm going to put a hole using my awl right through that, and I'm going to thread the string through. This is why I do this before I glue everything together, because I've learned from my mistakes in the past doing things out of order that wind up being disastrous. So try to make sure I do stuff in the right order. I'm going to tie that in a knot and trim the bottom. And you can leave it like that if you want, or put a piece of tape over it to make sure that it stays in there, which is what I'm going to do. And nobody's going to see it. It's going to be on the inside where no one can see it. So I'm just going to use a piece of washi tape, and doesn't need to be a real big piece, but just something that will keep that knot from and your string from sliding around. So now that's done and ready to be attached. And so I'm going to have it open on this side, so then you'll have this flap and then another flap, but it'll be a lot easier for taking things in and out if the opening's on this side. So I'm going to just put glue on the 3 gusset flaps. I'm just using Fabri-Tac. It's my favorite glue. Even though I'm having a hard time finding it, and I thought it was just my local area, but I've since heard a lot of people are having issues with finding Fabri-Tac. So this is about a 1/2 inch. I'm putting this about a 1/2 inch from my spine. Make sure that it is even and glued down well, and I don't have any glue seeping out. One thing I really like, and one of the things I like best about Fabri-Tac, is that it dries quickly, but not so fast that you can't move things if they're in the wrong spot. So I think that looks good. I think I'm going to put a knot. Well, I may cut that yet. Then for the flap, what I'm going to do then is glue this and then tuck it. Actually, what I'm going to do first is notch this right here. I'll notch those corners so that it fits comfortably on the inside. I'm going to glue it down like this, tuck it in there, and so that will be what the pocket looks like. You don't need to have a back. Saves a little bit of paper. And so I'm going to glue on the flap here. And carefully tuck it in. You don't want to leave glue smears all over the place. Make sure that it's even on both sides. Make sure there's no glue smeared. Or on the outside it didn't ooze out. Looks good. And then you have your button and string closure. And that's wrapped around twice, and that's still pretty long, so I'm going to, and I didn't pull it tight. It does close. If you're familiar with button string closures, it will close flat. And I'm going to put a knot on the bottom for no other reason than I think it just will give it a little more finished look. Move all my scraps out of the way. Clean up my mess. Nice, huh? So the last thing we need to talk about is the closure. So on the example that I previously made, the closure, I decided just to do a sari silk closure that just wraps around. So this is the kind of closure this one has, and I really like this closure for this one because it has that vintage feel and kind of a Victorian ish, Victorian-esque, Victorian era paper. And so this is the kind of closure I want to do for this one, and just something simple. But I was thinking with this one, this style, maybe doing an elastic, kind of a wraparound elastic. And so what I was thinking is I dug out my elastic, and I've got some gray that I thought looked pretty good with the cover. Unfortunately, I don't have any red or black. I think these are pretty colors, but they're most of them are not right. But I do like the gray, so I think I'm going to go with the gray. And maybe if I can get it all unraveled. So when you're using elastic for a closure, you want to basically about double the width of your project. You definitely don't want to cut it too short. If it's too long, you can easily trim it back. But, you know, once it's tied in a knot and it's full of stuff, it will, you know, see, I have plenty of room for the knot, but it's not going to be so, so tight that it will kind of smush everything together. So in order to do that kind of a closure, what I'm going to do is put an eyelet in the center there, but I also want to since this is only one layer of paper, I'm going to put just a small piece of paper in the middle here, so that it gives around the eyelet just a little extra strength. And I'm just going to use a scrap of paper because most of it is not going to be visible. Oh, sorry, Lizzie. I've got my stuff spread out all over the table in Her Majesty's way. So I'm just going to glue. Let's see, where's my center? This is 9 inches, so at about 4.5 inches. I'm just going to glue this. Make sure it's not too wide. It's a little wide. And it doesn't need to be big at all. And just glue that down. Just want to make sure that it is not going to tear the paper. The eyelet's not going to tear the paper. So just little too much glue on there, kind of making a mess. All right, I think that's the last I need the glue for this project. And grab my eyelet setter again and just right in the center. The center of the center. I'm going to put an eyelet. I'm going to go with a dark color. Now I've glue all over my fingers. And I'm normally have butterfingers on any normal circumstance, but add the glue on there and nothing is, or everything is sticking. And all right, so I've just put my eyelet right there, and I'm going to slip both ends of the elastic through. And this hole's pretty big. I'm gonna have to make sure my knot is pretty sturdy in there. Might have to double knot. We'll have to see. Yep, needs another knot. That should do the trick. And then when everything is in there, you just need to wrap this around like that. Perfect, perfect fit. So let's go ahead and fill it, and then we're done, right? Pretty exciting. So, and I'll trim this down here too in just a sec. So we have all of our stuff that we've made. I've got the envelope with the journal on the inside, and that goes in this pocket, or this belly band. And then our faux file folder, and I have made a bunch of ephemera, and I'll go ahead and put all the ephemera in the pockets. And I've got some of the recipe cards that I cut from the paper pack, and I just added a little trim on there just for some visual interest. But I didn't want to cover up the lines since those are recipe cards. I also took an index card and I embellished it a little bit, but there's still room on there for journaling or notes. And an ephemera card from the paper pack. There's 2 more recipe cards. Pop that in this pocket. And let's see, I made a journaling card with a pocket and another little tag on the inside. Put that in there, and another index card. And flip the page, and I made these nice big journaling cards. I just took the paper and glued it to a Project Life card, and then sewed the edges, add a little bit of embellishment there. Another card and a tag with the tag. The other pocket, I have these vintage Betty Crocker. It's a Betty Crocker party book. So it's a cookbook, but it also has menus and instructions for how to write invitations and how to RSVP. It's a fantastic, fantastic book. I just love it. All these vintage pictures and things. So I'm going to put some of those fantastic book pages in the big pocket. And what else do I have to go in there? Another big journaling card and a tag with a pocket. And on the next page, we've got the big tuck spot. And I have 2 more of the big journaling cards I'll put in there. And another index card that's been just embellished a little bit. And then in the big tuck spot, I have this big file folder card I'm going to put in there. Hopefully it fits. I made it to go in there. Needs to fit. I wanted it to fit just right so those tabs matched up. So that goes here. I swear I made something to go in this pocket. Did I stick it somewhere else by accident? No. Where did I put it? There it is. I made a card or bookmark or tag to go in this pocket. Perfect. I'm so happy with the way this turned out. I'm going to trim this down a little bit. And it's all done. There we go. I don't know. What do you think? I hope you give this project a try. And if you make one, it'd be awesome to hear from you to see what you made. You can submit pictures, upload them onto our Facebook page so we can see what you've made, and you can share share your finished project. I think that would be awesome. So thank you so much for joining me today for part 3 of the tutorial of these amazingly cute faux file folder ephemera kits, ephemera packs. I think they're awesome. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a fantastic weekend. Happy Friday. And I will see you next time. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.